My friends, there is a great misunderstanding that keeps many people chasing their dreams while never truly touching them. They are told to manifest. They are told to attract. They are told to force reality to bend to their will. And so they spend years trying to become what they already are. Today, I invite you to stop manifesting and start remembering. For what you seek is not somewhere in the distance. It is not waiting for the right time. It is not hidden behind some future event. The life you desire exists first within you. Every achievement, every relationship, every expression of abundance is born from a state of consciousness. Before it becomes visible in the world, it is already present in the unseen depths of your being. The question is not, how do I get it? The question is, can I remember who I am when I already have it? Most people wake each morning and remember their limitations. They remember yesterday's failures. They remember rejection. They remember scarcity. They remember what the world has told them. Then they wonder why they continue to experience the same reality. You do not live from what you desire. You live from what you remember. If every day you remember lack, you recreate lack. If every day you remember fear, you recreate fear. If every day you remember being unworthy, life faithfully reflects that memory back to you. But there is another way. Remember the version of yourself who is already fulfilled. Remember the self who is loved. Remember the self who is confident. Remember the self who is prosperous. Remember the self who is free. Do not strive to become that person. Occupy that identity now. The oak tree does not struggle to become an oak tree. It expresses what it already contains. Likewise, your deepest desires are not foreign to you. They are clues pointing toward a greater identity waiting to be remembered. The world you see is a mirror. A mirror cannot initiate. It can only reflect. Change the image before the mirror, and the reflection must follow. Change the concept you hold of yourself, and your circumstances will eventually rearrange themselves to match. This is why effort alone often fails. People work harder while remaining the same within. They seek different results while carrying the same self-image. The outer action changes, but the inner memory remains untouched. Transformation begins when you remember a new truth about yourself. Remember that you are not defined by your current conditions. Remember that circumstances are temporary visitors. Remember that your imagination is not an escape from reality, but the doorway through which reality is formed. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the reality of your fulfilled desire, not as a distant dream, not as a possibility, but as a present fact. How would you walk? How would you speak? How would you think? How would you feel? That feeling is the memory of your future calling you home. The greatest secret is this. You are not creating a new reality. You are awakening to one that has always existed within consciousness. You are not becoming worthy. You are remembering your worth. You are not attracting love. You are remembering that you are love. You are not manifesting abundance. You are remembering that abundance is your natural state. So stop searching. Stop chasing. Stop begging life to give you permission. Turn inward. Remember the self you were born to be. Remember the truth that exists beyond fear, doubt, and appearances. And as you remember, the world will begin to remember you differently as well. For life can only echo the song you are singing within. The moment you remember who you are, reality has no choice but to respond. For most of our lives, we are taught to chase. We are taught that everything we want exists somewhere outside of us, waiting to be earned, won, or acquired. We chase success as though it is hiding in a future achievement. We chase love as though it belongs to someone else and must be given to us. We chase abundance as though it is a limited resource that only a fortunate few can access. And because we believe these things are separate from us, we spend our days running after them, hoping that one day we will finally catch them. But consider this for a moment. If chasing truly worked, why do so many people reach their goals and still feel incomplete? Why do people achieve success and immediately begin chasing the next level of success? Why do people find relationships and continue searching for validation? Why do people accumulate wealth and yet remain fearful of losing it? The answer is simple. They obtained something externally without becoming it internally. What you desire is not merely an object, a circumstance, or an event. At its core, every desire represents a state of being. When you say you want success, what you are really saying is that you want to feel accomplished, confident, capable, and secure. When you say you want love, what you are really seeking is the feeling of being valued, cherished, connected, and accepted. When you say you want abundance, you are seeking freedom, ease, confidence, and the knowledge that your needs are met. The mistake many people make is believing that these feelings will arrive after the external result appears. They tell themselves, when I get the promotion, then I will feel successful. When I meet the right person, then I will feel loved. When I have enough money, then I will feel secure. Yet life repeatedly demonstrates that the opposite is often true. The people who naturally attract opportunities tend to carry themselves as though they already expect success. Those who experience deep and healthy relationships often possess a strong sense of worth before anyone enters their lives. Those who create abundance frequently think and act from a mindset of abundance long before it becomes visible in their circumstances. This is why the shift from chasing to identifying is so powerful. Instead of asking, how do I get what I want? Begin asking, who am I when I already have it? This question changes everything. It redirects your attention from the outer world to the inner world. It invites you to explore the identity behind the desire. Imagine the version of yourself who already possesses the life you seek. How does that person think when faced with challenges? How do they speak about themselves? How do they walk into a room? What assumptions do they make about their future? How do they treat other people? How do they spend their time? These questions are not exercises in fantasy. They are invitations to discover a state of consciousness. Most people spend their lives waiting for permission from the world before they allow themselves to feel successful, confident, loved, or worthy. They stand at the door of their dreams asking reality for proof. But reality waits for them to step through first. The inner transformation must precede the outer confirmation. Think of an actor preparing for a role. Before stepping onto the stage, the actor studies the character, adopts the character's mannerisms, learns the character's mindset, and begins to see the world through the character's eyes. Eventually, the actor no longer appears to be pretending. They embody the role so completely that it feels natural. In a similar way, you are invited to embody the version of yourself that already lives the reality you desire. This does not mean denying present circumstances. It does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to let present appearances define your identity. There is a difference between experiencing a temporary circumstance and accepting it as a permanent description of who you are. A person may encounter financial difficulty without identifying as a person who is destined for lack. A person may experience rejection without identifying as someone who is unworthy of love. Circumstances are events. Identity is a choice. When you continually identify with your limitations, you strengthen them. When you repeatedly tell yourself stories about why something is impossible, you reinforce the state that produces those experiences. Every day, people unknowingly rehearse identities they no longer wish to live. They replay memories of failure, disappointment, and struggle until those experiences become part of their self-concept. Then they wonder why their reality remains unchanged. The moment you begin identifying with a greater version of yourself, something remarkable happens. Your thoughts begin to shift. Your decisions begin to change. Opportunities that once seemed invisible become noticeable. Actions that once felt intimidating become natural. You stop operating from desperation and start operating from expectation. You stop seeking validation and begin expressing confidence. The external world may not transform overnight, but your relationship with it changes immediately. The secret is not to force life to give you what you want. The secret is to become the person for whom those experiences are natural. A seed does not chase the tree it will become. It contains the potential within itself from the beginning. The process is not one of acquisition, but of expression. In the same way, the qualities you seek are not separate from you. They are possibilities already present within your consciousness, waiting to be accepted, embodied, and expressed. Every desire is an invitation to expand your identity. Every dream is a call to remember a greater version of yourself. The question is not whether that version exists. The question is whether you are willing to identify with it now, before the world gives you evidence, before circumstances change, and before anyone else believes in it. For the moment you stop chasing and start identifying, you begin to move from longing for a new life to living from it. One of the most profound truths a person can discover is that the world they experience is not merely happening to them, it is responding to them. Most people spend their lives believing that circumstances create their identity. They look at their bank account and decide whether they are successful. They look at their relationships and decide whether they are worthy of love. They look at their achievements and decide whether they are capable. In this way, they allow the outer world to tell them who they are. But what if the relationship works in the opposite direction? What if the external world is not the author of your identity, but the reflection of it? What if life is constantly mirroring back the beliefs, assumptions, and expectations you hold about yourself? Imagine standing in front of a mirror. If you dislike the image staring back at you, it would be absurd to try to change the reflection directly. You would not polish the glass, argue with the mirror, or demand that the image become different. You would understand that the reflection can only change when the person standing before it changes first. Yet this is exactly what many people do with life. They attempt to alter the reflection without addressing the source. They fight circumstances while leaving their assumptions untouched. They seek different results while maintaining the same self-concept. They want abundance while secretly believing they are undeserving. They want love while carrying the conviction that they are not enough. They want success while identifying themselves as someone who always struggles. Then they wonder why the reflection remains the same. Your self-concept is the collection of beliefs you hold about who you are. It is the story you tell yourself every day, often without realizing it. It is present in the way you speak, the choices you make, the opportunities you pursue, and the expectations you carry into every situation. Long before the world responds to you, you have already defined your relationship with it through your assumptions about yourself. Consider two individuals walking into the same room. One believes they are valuable, capable, and deserving of respect. The other believes they are overlooked, unimportant, and likely to be rejected. Although they enter the same environment, their experiences will often be completely different. One notices opportunities, connections, and possibilities. The other notices criticism, obstacles, and reasons to doubt themselves. The difference is not always in the room. The difference is in the lens through which they view it. Life has a remarkable way of confirming what we already believe to be true. If you believe people are generally supportive, you will notice evidence that supports that belief. If you believe people cannot be trusted, your attention will gravitate toward experiences that reinforce it. If you believe success is available to you, you will begin acting in ways that support that assumption. If you believe success belongs only to others, you may unconsciously avoid the very opportunities that could change your life. This is why changing circumstances alone rarely creates lasting transformation. A person may receive a promotion, but if they still see themselves as inadequate, they will live in constant fear of failure. Someone may enter a loving relationship, but if they secretly believe they are unworthy of love, they may sabotage the connection through insecurity and doubt. Someone may achieve financial abundance, but if they continue to identify with scarcity, they may experience ongoing anxiety regardless of how much they possess. The outer change cannot permanently exceed the inner identity. Sooner or later, people return to the level of self-concept they consistently occupy. This is why true transformation begins within. It begins when a person becomes aware of the hidden assumptions shaping their experience and consciously chooses new ones. Ask yourself, what do you believe about yourself when no one else is around? What assumptions do you carry about your future? What labels have you accepted? Do you see yourself as someone who is always struggling, always unlucky, always overlooked? Or do you see yourself as someone who is capable, resilient, and worthy of good things? These questions matter because your answers become the blueprint from which you live. Many of the limitations people experience are not imposed by the world, they are inherited from old beliefs. Perhaps they were formed through childhood experiences, past disappointments, criticism, or failure. Over time, these experiences become identities. A temporary setback becomes, I am not good enough. A rejection becomes, I am not lovable. A financial challenge becomes, I am destined to struggle. The event passes, but the identity remains. Yet identities are not permanent. They are assumptions, and assumptions can be changed. The moment you stop treating an old belief as a fact and start seeing it as a choice, you reclaim your power. You no longer have to define yourself by yesterday's experiences. You can choose a new story. This does not happen through force or endless repetition alone. It happens through consistent identification with a new version of yourself. Begin to think from the perspective of the person you wish to become. Ask how that version of you would interpret challenges. Ask what they would expect from life. Ask how they would carry themselves through uncertainty. Little by little, a new identity begins to take root. As this inner shift occurs, the outer world begins responding differently. You may notice changes in your confidence, your decisions, your conversations, and your opportunities. People often call these changes coincidences or luck, but they are frequently the natural consequences of a transformed self-concept. When you see yourself differently, you engage with life differently. And when you engage with life differently, life responds differently. The world is constantly reflecting the image you hold of yourself. Not every event is under your control, and not every circumstance appears instantly, but the dominant assumptions you repeatedly occupy become the foundation from which your experiences emerge. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are projecting an image of who you believe yourself to be. The reflection you encounter in life is often revealing that image back to you, inviting you to examine it, refine it, and ultimately choose it with intention rather than by default. Every day, whether we realize it or not, we are engaged in an act of remembering. From the moment we wake up, memories begin to shape our experience of reality. We remember who we think we are. We remember what happened yesterday. We remember our disappointments, our successes, our fears, and our expectations. These memories do not merely exist in the background of our minds. They become the foundation from which we think, feel, and act. Most people believe they are living from the circumstances of the present moment, yet in many ways they are living from the memories they carry within them. They may be standing in a new day, surrounded by new possibilities, but mentally they remain attached to old stories. They continue to remember the rejection that hurt them years ago. They continue to remember the failure that embarrassed them. They continue to remember the criticism that made them doubt themselves. They continue to remember moments of loss, disappointment, and limitation. Over time, these memories become more than events. They become identities. A person who repeatedly remembers failure may begin to see themselves as a failure. A person who continually remembers rejection may begin to identify as someone who is unwanted. A person who constantly recalls struggle may come to believe that life is meant to be difficult. Although the original event may have happened long ago, its influence remains active because it is remembered again and again. Consider how often people introduce themselves to the future using evidence from the past. They say, "Things never work out for me." They say, "I have always struggled with money." They say, "Relationships never last." They say, "I am not confident enough." These statements may sound like observations, but in reality they are acts of remembering. They are bringing yesterday's experiences into today's consciousness and allowing them to define tomorrow's possibilities. The remarkable thing about the human mind is that it does not always distinguish between what is physically present and what is emotionally remembered. When a person repeatedly revisits an old wound, they often relive the feelings associated with it. The body responds, the emotions return, the limitations feel real again. In this way, the past continues to influence the present, not because it still exists, but because it is continually remembered. Many people unknowingly spend years rehearsing the same stories. They wake up and remember why they cannot succeed. They remember why they are not qualified. They remember why they are unlucky. They remember why their dreams are difficult. They remember every reason they should doubt themselves. Then they carry these memories into their conversations, decisions, and expectations. Eventually, life reflects those expectations back to them, reinforcing the cycle. But what if remembering could become a conscious act rather than an unconscious habit? What if you could choose which memories define your identity? What if you could stop giving your attention to the versions of yourself created by fear and begin remembering the version of yourself created by possibility? This is where transformation begins. The question is not simply what happened to you in the past. The question is what you continue to remember about yourself today. Every memory carries meaning, but the meaning you assign to it determines its influence. A setback can become proof of inadequacy, or it can become evidence of resilience. A challenge can become a reason to quit, or it can become a reminder of your strength. The event remains the same, but the memory changes according to the identity you choose to create from it. Imagine for a moment that instead of remembering your limitations, you began remembering your power. Imagine waking each day and recalling moments when you overcame difficulties. Imagine remembering every challenge you survived, every obstacle you navigated, every goal you achieved. Imagine remembering that there have been countless occasions when you found a way forward despite uncertainty. Such memories create a different emotional foundation. They produce confidence instead of fear. Now imagine remembering your worthiness, not as something you must earn in the future, but as something that already exists within you. Many people spend their lives seeking approval because they remember every criticism while forgetting every strength. They carry memories of rejection and overlook memories of acceptance. They focus on moments when they felt unseen and ignore moments when they were valued. By doing so, they create an incomplete picture of themselves. When you consciously remember your worth, you begin to move through life differently. You stop asking for permission to exist fully. You stop measuring your value by the opinions of others. You begin making choices from self-respect rather than insecurity. The world often responds to this shift because people tend to treat us in ways that reflect how we treat ourselves. There is also a deeper form of remembering that extends beyond past experiences. It is the ability to remember the version of yourself connected to your deepest desires. Before a dream becomes visible in your outer world, you can begin remembering what it feels like to live it. You can remember the confidence of success before the achievement arrives. You can remember the peace of abundance before circumstances change. You can remember the joy of fulfillment before physical evidence appears. To many people, this may seem unusual because they have been taught to wait for reality before allowing themselves to feel differently. Yet every great transformation begins with an internal shift. The individual who changes their life does not wait for evidence before changing their identity. They begin remembering a greater version of themselves first. This does not mean denying present circumstances or pretending difficulties do not exist. It means refusing to let old memories dictate the boundaries of your future. It means recognizing that while the past may have shaped certain experiences, it does not have the authority to define who you are becoming. Every day offers a choice. You can remember the fears that keep you small, or you can remember the possibilities that call you forward. You can remember the failures that discouraged you, or you can remember the strength that carried you through them. You can remember the version of yourself shaped by doubt, or you can remember the version of yourself capable of creating something new. The life you experience is influenced not only by what you see around you, but by what you repeatedly bring to mind within you. What you remember becomes what you expect. What you expect influences how you act. How you act shapes what you experience. In this way, memory becomes more than a record of the past. It becomes a creative force in the present, quietly guiding the direction of your future through the identity you choose to remember each day. One of the greatest misconceptions people carry is the belief that fulfillment exists somewhere in the future. They imagine it waiting beyond the next achievement, the next relationship, the next opportunity, or the next milestone. They tell themselves that when a certain event happens, then they will finally feel complete. When the promotion comes, they will feel successful. When the money arrives, they will feel secure. When the relationship appears, they will feel loved. When the circumstances change, they will feel fulfilled. As a result, they spend much of their lives postponing the very feelings they seek. They place their happiness in the hands of future events and make their peace dependent upon conditions they cannot yet see. Day after day they wait. Month after month they wait. Sometimes year after year they continue waiting for the outer world to give them permission to feel the way they wish to feel. But consider what this approach truly means. It means allowing circumstances to become the source of your identity. It means deciding that a condition outside of you possesses the authority to determine your emotional state. It means declaring that fulfillment is something to be granted rather than something to be realized. Yet if fulfillment depends entirely upon external evidence, it remains fragile. It rises and falls with changing conditions. It appears when circumstances are favorable and disappears when circumstances become difficult. A person who depends upon the outer world for fulfillment becomes a prisoner of uncertainty because the external world is constantly changing. There is another possibility. What if fulfillment is not the result of transformation, but the cause of it? What if the feeling you have been waiting for is the very thing that creates the change you desire? What if the inner experience must come first? Most people are familiar with the idea of cause and effect. They believe that events create emotions. They believe success creates confidence. They believe love creates happiness. They believe abundance creates peace. In this model, the outer world is the cause and the inner world is the effect. Yet when we examine the lives of remarkable individuals, we often discover something different. Many of them possessed confidence before they had evidence for it. Many carried conviction before anyone believed in them. Many maintained a sense of purpose before their circumstances reflected it. They did not wait for reality to change before changing themselves. They changed themselves first, and reality gradually followed. The reason is simple. Every experience in life is filtered through consciousness. The world does not merely respond to what you do, it often responds to who you believe yourself to be. Your actions, decisions, conversations, and expectations all arise from the state of being you occupy. If that state remains unchanged, external efforts frequently produce only temporary results. Imagine someone who desires success but secretly identifies with failure. They may work tirelessly toward their goals, but beneath their actions lies the assumption that they are not capable. Every challenge becomes proof of inadequacy. Every setback strengthens their doubt. Even when opportunities appear, they may hesitate because they do not see themselves as deserving of success. Now imagine someone who genuinely feels successful within. Their circumstances may not yet reflect their vision, but they carry themselves differently. They think differently. They expect differently. They approach opportunities with confidence rather than fear. Their actions arise naturally from the identity they have accepted. Over time, their outer experience begins to mirror their inner state. This is why fulfillment begins within. It begins when you stop treating your desired reality as something distant and start accepting it as a state of consciousness available to you now. The moment you allow yourself to feel the essence of what you seek, you begin changing the foundation from which you live. Notice that every desire contains a feeling at its core. The desire for wealth is often a desire for freedom, security, or ease. The desire for love is often a desire for connection, appreciation, or belonging. The desire for success is often a desire for confidence, accomplishment, or significance. While people focus on obtaining the outer form, what they truly seek is the inner experience associated with it. The powerful realization is that the feeling itself is available long before the circumstance appears. You can cultivate gratitude before receiving the gift. You can embody confidence before achieving the goal. You can experience peace before solving every problem. You can feel worthy before receiving validation. These states do not need to wait for permission from the outer world. This does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities or denying reality. Rather, it means choosing the emotional and psychological state from which you will engage with reality. Two people can face the same situation and experience it entirely differently because they occupy different states of consciousness. One person approaches life from lack. They constantly notice what is missing. They focus on what has not happened. They measure themselves against circumstances and conclude that fulfillment remains far away. Another person approaches life from wholeness. They recognize possibilities where others see obstacles. They maintain faith in their vision despite temporary appearances. They act from the feeling of already being aligned with what they desire. The difference between these two individuals is not merely external behavior. It is the state from which that behavior emerges. One is waiting for fulfillment. The other is living from it. Many people underestimate the power of this shift because they have been conditioned to trust only what they can physically see. They believe evidence must come first. Yet every creation, every achievement, every transformation begins in the unseen realm of thought, belief, and feeling before becoming visible. The inner world always precedes the outer expression. When you repeatedly return to the feeling of your desired reality, something begins to change. New thoughts arise naturally. New choices become available. New opportunities capture your attention. You stop reacting to life from old patterns because you are no longer identified with them. Instead, you begin responding from the version of yourself you have chosen to embody. The feeling of already being who you wish to be becomes more than an exercise. It becomes your foundation. It influences the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you interact with others, and the way you interpret events. Gradually, the gap between your inner experience and outer circumstances begins to close. Transformation is rarely the result of forcing life to change. More often, it is the result of becoming internally aligned with the reality you desire. The moment you stop waiting for fulfillment and begin living from it, you establish a new center of gravity within yourself. From that center, your thoughts, emotions, actions, and expectations begin moving in a different direction, carrying your life with them.